At what point does someone consider themselves a professional? Well, let's take a look at that. Um, for me, I consider myself a professional. Um, a bit late in life, but to be honest, when I finished my internship and started back at University of North Texas, I had, well, at the end of my internship, I had basically walked up to my director of the help desk and straight up asked her, hey, what are the plans after my internship? At the start of my internship, I had basically come in and there was a project for me to focus on developing some new metrics around the help desk. And then the funding for that fell through. But the funding for me as an internship came from the company, not from the help desk cost center. And cost centers are a whole big thing. If you ever go and work in the corporate world or in the government world, they're a fun thing to play with. So yeah, you'll have fun with that. But it was decided I'd be trained as a help desk analyst. So I excelled. I was supposed to be trained to handle password calls, password resets, getting people access to systems, that sort of thing. That normally takes a contractor 4 or 5 weeks. I think I was only there for 16 weeks total, if that. But that usually takes 4 to 5 weeks. Within the first 3 weeks of me being trained, or of me being there during my internship, I was fully trained as a password analyst on top of doing several internship activities that were full-day activities. And they basically said, okay, well, let's see what else we can train him in. They put me on the team that handles the, well, it's a fight between those two teams, but the team that handles the biggest call volume, infrastructure. They handle any kind of PC-based issues, anything on PCs. Windows, Office, anything you've got going on with your PC, even troubleshooting. Except hands-on stuff, unfortunately. They have an advanced team for that. And we'll get into that later. But that team usually takes a couple months to learn. Well, by week 7 of my internship, I was taking calls on that team too. Just that team though. They had taken me out of the password queue. By week 9, they put me into both queues, and I was doing great. So they said, okay, well, let's toss them another queue. It's not a horrible queue, and there's a lot of overlap between the two queues, you already know. So the third biggest, which is a fight between that and infrastructure, is business applications. So where infrastructure handled Windows and everything with the PCs, business applications handle specific applications that the business used. Anything developed internally that route sales used, or that sales, logistics, teams like that used. I learned all that. By week 12, I was taking all those calls. And then I did that for the rest of my internship. So I approached our director and I said, hey, what are your plans at the end of my internship? I'd love to come on, but I still have a year and a half left of school. And I'd made that known all throughout my internship is, hey, guys, I love it here. I'd love to be a help desk analyst. I mean, it wasn't my career goal, but it's a great way to start. And she said, oh, nobody told you? Yeah, we're going to make you a co-op offer. We want you to stay on. So immediately after my internship, there was a 4-week lull between the end of summer semester at University of North Texas and the start of fall semester. But I was continuing on into a co-op. And at that point, when I sat down and I was basically sitting in the new business building, looking around, I was like, holy shit, I'm actually a professional now. Yeah, I got a year and a half of school left, but I have a full-time job, working in the industry. I'm a professional. So, fast forward about a year and a half, and I'm working the second shift at the help desk. I'm trained on anything that the help desk can offer. Applications, the route sales, equipment, anything, even after hours stuff. So at that point, a former intern had decided he wasn't going to take a full-time offer with the help desk, which is fine, happens all the time. But he developed had started to develop a great tool. And it was written in AutoHotkey. I don't really like the language at all. Neither does Wilma from the looks of it. But the tool itself, the idea behind the tool itself was awesome. I mean, dude was on his game. So we wanted to keep the tool, but not a lot of us knew AutoHotkey. It had a lot of limitations, and to be honest, our antivirus program kept throwing some issues with it too. Thought some of the stuff was malware. Behavioral antivirus is awesome. But anyway, they approached me because, I was doing so great on my calls and everything. I was knocking everything out and meeting metrics, exceeding them in a lot of areas. And they approached me and wanted me to take some time off the phones and do that. And so I started to write some of the code for it, started to revamp it a little bit. At the same time, I applied for a Tier 2 position, which is basically when an analyst on the frontline phones can't handle an issue, they escalate it to a Tier 2 analyst who have more skills, more access, to be frank, more time to handle advanced issues. I got the job. I moved off second shift back to a primary day shift, and I was handling advanced tickets and writing this code. Me and another guy, we were working a lot of these projects internal to the help desk. And the ticket volume was so great for the Tier 2 analysts that they looked at bringing on another analyst. And me and the other guy who were working projects internal, we couldn't keep up. So they made 2 new positions. And Wilma, you can't keep walking into the thing. They made 2 new positions just for us. We became the automation team. We were working internal to the help desk, working projects to help all the analysts. They were our customers. That tool that was created in AutoHotkey, rewrote it entirely into C#. Instead of functions that were written in AutoHotkey, I decided, why recreate all this? We're looking at just Windows desktops. We're not doing Linux and stuff like the original guy thought we would originally branch out to. Those were way out of scope. Let's look at batch scripts. Let's look at PowerShell, stuff like that. C# gave us that capability and just ran with it. Rewrote the entire tool in under 6 months. Another intern came in. She filled a huge amount of the gaps, helped knock out the rest of it, and everything was awesome. Until one of our shift leads for second shift left. And it was a perfect position for me to step into. That was a team I had trained on. I knew a lot of those guys. I knew their capabilities, and I was ready for leadership at that point. But this position wasn't a full leadership position. I didn't have management abilities. I didn't have to handle HR stuff. This was just running the everyday as a team, handling any escalations, any things they couldn't handle. I was a Tier 2 to them, just them. So I moved back onto that team. I was still allowed to continue my development since it wasn't as intense. I had already rewritten the tool. This was just maintenance and adding new features at this point. During that time, I finished my master's. So right after I'd gotten onto that team. And by finishing my master's, I realized at this point I'd way outgrown the help desk. My actual interest had way outgrown the help desk. I wanted into security. I wanted that to be my industry. But the company didn't have any security openings. Now, I didn't know any of the behind the scenes that the new Chief Information Security Officer was looking to completely reform the program. She was keeping that tight to her chest and to her manager's chest. So I didn't know any of that. So when I went to apply for an engineer position up there and was turned down, and I went to apply for a quote-unquote governance position and was turned down, I thought that was the writing on the wall, that I would never go into security with the company. At the time, there was a you should leave, get the experience and come back type mentality for a lot of upper roles in the company. So I thought, I love the company. I'm going to do that. And I started to look, and I let my manager, I kind of gave her a heads up. Hey, I've got my master's. And the company paid for it. I'd love to stay here. I've met the requirements of tuition reimbursement. I stayed for the length of time after the tuition reimbursement. So I don't have to pay any of this back. But I want to get into security. I'm starting to look at other jobs. And she ran that up the flagpole. And one of the managers, who was about to reform the incident response team from scratch, went to the Chief Information Security Officer and basically said, look, this guy wants to come up here. Keeping this to our chests is great, but we're about to lose someone who has a master's, has tons of help desk experience, can do this job. I want him. Let me create a position. And she let him create a position. And he moved me up there. And I stuck on the incident response team as a Tier 1 analyst for several years. Moved up to a Tier 2 position and started doing actual forensics investigations, which were great. And all throughout this time, I was helping create processes for our incident response teams globally. It was just a Plano, so here in the US, we were based in Plano, and a Warsaw team over in Warsaw, Poland. And we had a quote-unquote follow the sun model. We had contractors over in India to help us with that, but they were far less skilled than us. They couldn't do forensic investigations or any of that stuff. So I helped develop a lot of the processes. And I had a manager when I was a Tier 2 who completely burned me out of incident response. Some people are great people. Some people are great individual contributors, which means you're not a manager. You are individually contributing to the success of the organization. Some people are not meant to be managers and are given a manager position because of their seniority, or go for it because they think it's the traditional route and that they are either owed it, or it's time to move to that position, or it's just the next step in their career. This person was unfortunately that type of person. He burned me out, guys. He really did. I was about to leave the company and to leave security as a whole, even though I really wanted to be in security. Now, granted, when he left the company and went somewhere else, he became an individual contributor again. I don't know whether he worked on himself or not, but he's a manager again, and he's doing great. He's an awesome manager now. So, sometimes you realize you're not a great manager. You step back, you redevelop yourself, you become a great manager. That's awesome. Those are the great kind of managers. To be honest, I'd love to work for him again because that means he took the time to redevelop himself and he's willing to listen to feedback now. Cool. At the time, though, it burned me out. But I stayed because I kind of had this inkling that things would change eventually. And they did. He left. Another person took over, but within a few months, he left too. And there was a lot of turmoil. But in the end of it, when the dust settled, it was me and a couple others from the quote-unquote old guard, and me and the current manager of incident response helped rebuild the team from scratch, basically. And I became a tier 3. I was one of like 5 at the time, 4 or 5, of the most senior analysts for the company for incident response globally. I was taking digital forensics cases, TLP red cases. You can see my video about what traffic light protocol is, and you will understand those are really difficult cases. And I also took on a lot of other responsibilities. Those responsibilities are what led me to eventually working with my current manager before he became my current manager. Now, those responsibilities included handling our remote lab, which does a lot of capabilities. I can't really explain all of them because of the nature of the lab. But throughout a year and a half, I was in limbo. And I worked pretty much 2 jobs, honestly. Incident response analyst, and then during the quote-unquote downtime, really, I was working 50 hours, 60-hour weeks sometimes. I was redeveloping the lab, creating a standard for it, and proposing this standard to my soon-to-be new manager, hopefully, and to our new director, and they loved it. This standard was going to be rolled out globally. To this point, we had 2 labs, one in Plano, one in Warsaw. Warsaw was exceedingly difficult to manage. It took me an hour and a half to requisition a new user there, on average. Sometimes longer, never shorter, never. Plano, there was no central authentication at all. So that was interesting. So, long story short, it ended up after about a year and a half, I moved over to another brand new team called Enterprise Operations. And our only job is we have an engineering team called Security Engineering. Their job is to create and deliver security products to the company as a whole. Doesn't give them a lot of time to handle the intensity of requests that our Cyber Fusion Center has. That's our job. We handle our Cyber Fusion Center's requests. And if we have to, we get security engineering team involved. A lot of the time we can handle that. Along with that, I re-engineered our entire labs. They're all on a new standard. Soon they'll be going to another standard, a 3.0 standard. Working on that proposal right now. That's an awesome proposal. But that's been my career journey so far. It's been a long journey, 13 years. But to be honest, I wouldn't have it any other way. Really wouldn't. And that's life, guys. Sometimes it's hard, but stick with it. You never know where that journey will take you. You really don't.